So let's start with you, Mayor. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You've come on many times, but the last time you came on, we were in sort of a very different universe as far as crypto is concerned. So we just kind of want to get your take on what's going on. I mean, you are the Bitcoin mayor. Bitcoin not that long ago dropped something like 70% off its all-time high. There's been all sorts of implosions in the crypto market. I think it's fair to say there's been somewhat of a loss of faith, at least among some members of the general public. So what do you make of this? I mean, you know, how big a deal is it for you and for your city, and when do you see us getting out of it?
Well, it's not a big deal for me. You know, I think what happens is a lot of people's point of reference is essentially last year. I talk about the year of mainstreaming, and I think last year was a year that Bitcoin and a lot of Web3 different products became mainstream. In other words, that the regular average everyday person found it. So their point of reference is only a year, but all of us who have been involved with Bitcoin and with other digital assets for 10 years plus know that this is fairly normal, right? And this is a generational evolution. You know, when I get interviewed, and I do interviews, national interviews all the time about this, you know, I tell people, don't hyper focus on the price. I understand that those who are investing in Bitcoin as a store of value are focusing on the price. I'm focusing a lot more on the utility. I'm seeing a lot of projects that are transitioning Bitcoin from a store of value to a utilized mechanism of exchange on a daily basis. For a company called Bakkt, BAKKT, has entered into a partnership with one of the digital providers, one of the exchange providers. I'm not sure if it was Mastercard or Visa, and it allows you to essentially be able to pay at a restaurant or anywhere else where these cards are ubiquitously accepted, and use your Bitcoin account. So you know, this kind of utility is now going to create a tremendous amount of use. And I think as time goes on, this is generational technology. So as time goes on and you see the Fed, you know, raising rates 2 quarters in a row by 75 basis points, you see inflation going crazy, a recession that we're in right now, people are going to continue to look at, you know, digital assets as a way to hedge into the future, I think.
Mayor Suarez, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and I have yet to complain about a parking ticket with you here, but that's for a different time. My question ultimately, though, is this, is that if you have crypto, and the growth of crypto is kind of a thing that you want Miami to tie its start to.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the price of crypto also dictates the kind of investments that go into the industry, and ultimately could affect you know, how many companies come into Miami and grow and hire. How do you plan and do you think about the infrastructure needs, et cetera, when you have this kind of growth with crypto? Or is it still kind of a relatively small part of Miami's overall economy that you're not worried just yet about what that could mean for you? I'm thinking about, what if down the road Miami becomes the Houston of the way Houston's tied to the oil industry and the energy industry? What happens to Miami if it becomes the crypto industry and it fluctuates the same way Houston's fortunes fluctuate with the price of oil?
Yeah, and you could say Detroit with the auto industry, right? I mean, you know, if you have a city that is not hedged, right, is not diversified in terms of its base economy, and too reliant on a particular base economy that can be disrupted, that's obviously a danger, right? In the case of crypto, we're using crypto and Web3 technologies as a way to differentiate ourselves. And it's created a huge ecosystem boost for us in terms of having the Bitcoin conference, which, as we know, provides, you know, 50,000 attendees and tens of millions of dollars of economic development. FTX, you know, paid $200 million to name our arena. You know, it's $200 million flowing into our economy. And then we have a variety locating in Miami, like blockchain.com and eToro and others that are providing, you know, tens if not hundreds of high-paying jobs in our community. So far it's been an ecosystem built. I think what's interesting about the moment that we're in is it's very similar to the 08-09 bubble burst in real estate, with one difference. In that case, the government bailed out the banks. In this case, the government is not bailing out any of these companies. And so what's happening is a consolidation. There are vultures circling around some of these companies. They're gonna pick apart the assets. And what will eventually happen is the stronger companies that have good business practices will survive, which will be healthier for the ecosystem overall. And it'll be like us replaying 08-09, except without government intervention, which I think is gonna actually make the crypto ecosystem significantly stronger.
All right. I wanted to pivot for a moment to talk about Miamicoin. You know, about a year ago, Miamicoin was worth 5 cents per coin and generating millions of dollars in revenue for the city of Miami. Now Miamicoin is basically worth nothing, and it's raised hopes that it would become this dependable revenue generator for Miami, and it's something that you celebrated. Nevertheless, now you're turning to NFTs to drive revenue for local businesses in partnership with Time and Salesforce. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Time is an incredible brand. It's a legacy brand. It's led by an incredibly dynamic person in Keith Grossman, who's here with us today. Obviously, Salesforce is a leader as well, industry leader. You know, and Mastercard is one of the most recognized payment processing companies in the world. So you're talking about, you know, three of the most notable companies, notable brands. And what we're trying to do is work with them on a Web3 application, minting 5,000 NFTs that are going to be they're going to be created by 56 artists representing the 56 square miles of the city. And it's going to be something that's going to go benefit local artists and will have a utility because those who buy it will be able to get special benefits, you know, unique experiences, one-of-a-kind events at local restaurants, and unforgettable private tours at Miami Cultural Institutions. So there's going to be a utility with the tour. So it's just an exciting time for us to continue to differentiate ourselves in Web3 and be a leader. And I'm just very grateful to people like Keith, who are just tremendous innovators and have allowed us to partner with them.
Well, Keith, maybe you can weigh in here too, but you know, with Miamicoin, it was a project that basically went to zero. And how do you eliminate some of that volatility when you're doing these NFTs?
Sure. I mean, well, first, I would ask, you know, are we really going to always fault people for taking chances and risks, right? And I think that part of, you know, success comes from taking risk, right, and seeing what the opportunity is. And when I took time into the NFT space about a year and a half ago, I got more text messages. I got more emails. I got more phone calls from people who asked me a very simple question, which was, am I crazy? Right? Have I lost my mind? All I do is, by the way, all I do is drink coffee and seltzer. Like I have not, you know, done anything other than watch what the trend lines are for where I think the world is going. It's funny how people's perceptions change. A year later, when the Press Gazette just did the math and realized that we did over $10 million in profit, you know, off of, you know, entering into the NFT space. And we did it in a way in which we were able to donate to charity, where we were able to split revenues with the artists, where we were able to actually tap into a completely new way of monetizing and building community. As it relates to Miami, I would make one correction if it's possible. I would actually correct calling Mayor Suarez the Bitcoin mayor, and I would just call him one of the most innovative mayors because, you know, it takes a lot of risk and a lot of, you know, guts these days to actually push forward agendas in cities that I think could have huge impact over the long term. The reason that I feel that we've hedged our bets as it relates to Miami and why I brought this to Mayor Suarez and his team is very simple. You know, Time has had a lot of success in understanding how, you know, communities relate to the space and how people interact with the space and how artists can benefit from the space and how the space can be utilized in many, many, many different facets, not just in the way that we are using it for timepieces. Salesforce has built their Salesforce NFT Cloud, which is an unbelievable software program that will ultimately allow for the entire foundational basis for this program to connect the token itself to the individual, should they wish to identify themselves, to Mastercard. And Mastercard's actually providing real utility, real value to the consumer. And so what owning the NFT is really at the end of the day is it's not an asset that we're going to say is going to go up or down. It's an asset that we are saying is an amazing piece of art that, by the way, offers you real utility. It connects into the Mastercard Priceless Miami program, which, by the way, was their most successful program ever. And then third, however the market decides they want to treat it, the market can treat it. But for me, like with timepieces, and I've been very clear with this with time from the get-go, like when you look at NFTs, like there's a few misnomers in place. One is that NFTs are cartoons or, you know, jokey communities. And really all the NFT is an asset that allows you to, you know, a token that allows you to verify ownership on the internet. The second is that communities are not always sort of rallied around the notion of greed, right? You have greed-based communities, which is where it's the most sexy to focus on because the most money's made and the most money's lost. And then you have values-based communities. And we've been very, very, very fixated on the idea of focusing on value and the idea that values create value over time. And that's been our approach with time. And that's been what's been successful so far.
So Keith, I kind of want to address this because, you know, if you went back 50 years, you would say that a content company such as Time, their main value was whatever it put out in that week and its infrastructure for that time. The archives didn't matter. 50 years now later, you have about 100 years worth of archives here and art, photos, content, etc. This sort of seems like a little bit kind of off your resources here, but I'm wondering, are you looking at different ways and have you looked at different ways and any proposals to take that century of content that you do now have and try to monetize it in a world where, you know, quite frankly, people aren't necessarily willing to pay for immediate news content, let's say, or what have you? Are you trying to monetize your archives in any way?
So you ask a really great question, and I think that this was a question that when I entered into the space, the initial answer I would have given you is yes, right? And if you look, right, in March of last year, I actually in Yahoo Finance made an announcement. I said we were going to do three things. One was we were going to open up with one-of-one NFTs, which did exactly what you said, which is we looked towards our past and we, on Super Rare, monetized one-of-one NFTs of some of our most famous covers, whether it was Chagall or the first Man of the Year from 1927. I don't know if you know this, but it turned to Person of the Year in 1999. We went to the Is Truth Dead? Is God Dead? And we created a special cover, Is Fiat Dead? Back last year and whatnot. I also said that we were going to accept cryptocurrencies for digital subscriptions of Time, of which we now accept 33 digital currencies for subscriptions. You can go on to www.time.com/hodl, which is my team's bad sense of humor, for digital subscriptions if you wish to pay in crypto. And we just accepted ApeCoin, which is the 33rd currency. And then the third thing I said we were going to do was we were going to think about our strategy over the course of 6 months and think about how can we use a token and a blockchain to change the relationship with our communities, right? And what we found, or what I found during that time as I sat in Clubhouse at that moment and I just listened and took feverish notes, was it's not about looking towards the past, it's about looking at the future. And if you think about the Time brand, right, the most iconic thing the Time brand has is the red border, right? And the thing that most people confuse the Time brand with is that it's a written brand and not a visual brand. But if I was to ask you a very simple question, right, what's your favorite cover of Time? Most people can give you that answer very quickly. They could give you an issue that stuck with them. And when you think about that, you know, what we've been able to do over the past 100 years with our red border is we've essentially had an analog meme generator, right? It's an amazing sort of asset in our book. And so what we're really looking at, you know, for timepieces, specifically as it relates to us, is how do we identify the next generation of artists, right? The artists that are emerging today, and we're looking forward, not backwards, right? And if you look at it, back in September when we launched Timepieces, we had 38 artists. Today we have 89 artists, and those artists range from anyone from Drift to Diana Sinclair to Justin Aversano to Fuck Render to Victor Mascara to Kath Simard to John Knopf. And like, these are individuals that have shown that they have real communities within the Web3 space. And the reason for that, and I apologize for the soliloquy, is the equation for success in Web3, especially around community-based sort of initiatives, is completely inverted from what it is in Web2. In Web2, that equation is brand identifies a creator who attracts an audience. In Web3, it's really community uplifts a creator, and then a brand validates that creator, and the community validates the brand for validating their creator. And so in the essence of the Miami program, it's really important that the 56 artists are local Miami artists for many, many different reasons. One is the utility taps into something that's very local to Miami, Priceless Miami from Mastercard. Second, it uplifts local artists, right? And third, Miami's incredibly diverse, right? It is just an amazing sort of ecosystem of diversity. And so 56 artists will allow us to capture so many different perspectives and approaches and backgrounds. And ultimately, by making it local, we think we could ensure the success of it.